Come on, everybody. Cam here from thefishroom.co.nz, and we have done it. We've made it to another Friday. We've got through another week. At least this time it is a short week, so happy days. Let's celebrate with caffeine. I mean coffee. Not the best I've made, but good enough. So today we have a special guest waiting for us to go to. Before we do that, just a very bit of quick admin. Obviously, today is a public holiday, being Matariki, so we are closed in the shop. Obviously, the website is still open, but the shop itself is closed. We're not going to open up again until Monday. And, of course, because it's a public holiday and why not, we decided to have a sale for this weekend. So the site-wide sale is 10% off everything. It's live now, and it's live until midnight on Sunday night. So absolutely everything on our website is 10% off. So fill your boots while you can. So now I've got through that boring stuff. Let's get to the people we really want to talk to. So please welcome Ryan and John. Good morning, gentlemen.
Hey guys, how we going?
Good. Thank you very much, Ryan, for joining us. I know you're pretty short on time on the best part, so it's fantastic that you've actually had the ability to say yes and come on and join us and talk to us today. So thank you very much. It's really appreciated.
No worries, mate.
Cool. All right, let's get into this. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. How do you get into fish keeping? How long have you been keeping fish and all that kind of good stuff?
So I got into fish when I was 15, so that was a while ago, like 25 years ago now. So, and I only got into fish because one of my friends did, and I thought, hey, these things are cool. I got a tank, and then my bedroom ended up full with them. So you know how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I started off with all the normal stuff, guppies and that sort of stuff, and then built a fish room at home when I was like 16.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool.
Was it an external one or was it internal?
It was just, I divided off part of my room basically in the garage because I had a sleep out and built a fish room in there. Yeah. Wow. So.
And you got the green light for your parents from that? Yeah,
they helped me build it all and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Very good.
There's worse things 16-year-olds could be getting up to.
Especially if they're potentially out their sleep out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't talk about those ones.
Cool. So how many tanks did your first sort of fish room have?
Probably only about 10.
Yeah.
It's just a small fish room, obviously.
Dealing with your basic live bearers and all that kind of things.
Yeah, and I did a few cichlids and fighters as well. So I actually used to breed firemouths, which I really liked. You know, they were real cool fish.
Nice fish. Yep.
So and a lot of betters.
Yeah.
So that's what I started off with.
Neat. So over the years, you've obviously changed your taste in fish. So you've been keeping fish for roughly 25 years. So where did it evolve from your original fish room to where you are now, and what you had in between, all that kind of stuff?
So I joined the Air Force when I was 19. So I left home and didn't keep fish for probably 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
And when I got settled again up in Auckland, I just bought a tank off Trade Me, full of mongrel hybrid African Cichlids, as we do.
Your favourites?
And my favourites now. And then I went and did a Google search and tried to discover what they were, and thought I knew what they were, and then went to a breeder's house, and then I was just like, wow, what is all this, you know? And he very nicely said, send me some photos via email, you know. And I said, but these are all no good, mate. You know, they're cool fish, but they're just hybrids. Yeah. So, and then it started from there for me for quality, cool. not quantity, not just keeping whatever. It was about just going online and seeing all the cool fish overseas and trying to get some of them in New Zealand.
Yeah, nice one. Yeah. So there's been nothing before the Africans. Africans have basically been for you when you've been back into it. That's been you, or
when I first got back into it, I was doing a lot of pistogramma. So I had half of pistos and half Africans when I first got into it.
Okay.
So I probably had about 10 or 15 species of pistos and dwarf cichlids at one stage. So they were pretty cool as well. But I found they kept just dropping dead on me. So a pistoing, as I called it, to just one day fine, the next day gone. You know.
So Africans almost survival of the fittest per se, and that was them.
Yeah, well, I mean, as an example, I shipped some fish this week. I haven't been shipping for ages, and I sent them on Tuesday. They were supposed to get there Wednesday. They didn't get there till Thursday. The guy said the water was so cold he couldn't put his hands in it. The fish were lying on the bottom of the thing, the bag's twitching. Out of 22 fish, 20 made it, you know. So you warm them up and they come back to life. You wouldn't get that with many other fish, you know. So I just like the colours and just the hardiness, you know. So
So is that why you've been with Africans? Just the colour of them, the hardiness, or is there a behavioural trait that you like, or variation traits, or because the African cichlid world is obviously huge and massive, and even in New Zealand, it's quite a large pool of fish that we have here compared to some other species. So where's your pull for Africans for that?
Well, I guess we don't really like their temperament because most of them are assholes and they kill each other.
Yeah.
But they're not usually very nice. They don't usually play nicely together. But I guess that's part of the challenge, is keeping things balanced, you know, and getting, you know, when you're trying to breed them, getting the right ratios, getting the right fish in the right tanks at the right times. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, fair enough.
And African tanks always on the move as well.
Yeah. And they don't.
One thing that stands out, it's just constantly buzzing, no matter what time of day.
It's like the trophiest tank behind me. You know, they're just always on the go. You know, so. And also, you know, what's that?
Are they doing the soy behind you?
No, they're Firefox.
Right, cool. Yep.
Yeah. That's Firefox. Trophiest Firefox tank.
Yep.
Pretty hard to see in the camera there. You can see some red flashes every so often, but yeah.
Yeah. And I can see, was it a loopy that's just popped up behind your shoulder?
Yes, some of the lupi and some Aulonocara in there as well.
Yeah, nice one.
And one rogue Mbuna. That these guys are the only thing tough enough to put up with.
Fair enough. Yeah, cool. So obviously you're an African cichlid geek, for lack of a better term. You're into them. How would you recommend people getting into African cichlids if there's an interest in that particular family of fish or body of fish?
Yeah, well, the biggest mistakes I see are people putting them in too small a tank. You know, like you just can't put them in a 2-foot tank. You can sort of put them in a 3-foot tank, but it's pushing it. You know, you really got to have a good sized tank, and you've got to get a decent number of fish. You know, if you get 2 or 3 fish, you're going to end up with 1 fish. You know, because the males are just always there looking to breed or fight with other males. You know, so they've got to have lots of targets. You know, and if you've got a small tank, you've got to start off with the right fish. You know, smaller Mbuna are usually the key for the smaller tanks. You don't want your big haps and stuff like that with small tanks, because again, you end up with 1 fish.
Yep. So, do you think people just keeping them in small tanks is the biggest issue with keeping African cichlids, or is there people underestimating temperaments, underestimating the food requirements, just generally keeping the wrong type of fish with each other, that kind of thing? Or is there a lot of other stuff that goes with it, or is that pretty there?
I mean, obviously it goes as deep as you want to go, but the main thing is just too small a tank, the wrong fish, and like you say, nutrition is important as well. A lot of these fish are vegetarians by nature, so if you start chucking your bloodworms and stuff in there, they're all going to bloat up on you and get blocked up. So you know,
quite a common problem that I discovered among people that used to be in my Facebook group is they would try and combine Africans with American cichlids and see they all live happily. And you know, I was trying to drive home the fact that they've got 2 different diets, and if you know one can take the other, but if the other one takes the crossover food, it can be fatal with bloat and stuff like that. So that I found that quite a common problem. Is that something that you've discovered as well?
Yeah, I mean the diet thing, I've actually I've managed to sort of work around in my room. I feed everything the same thing, so it seems to work for me. But I'm more heavily veggie based than meaty based, even for the carnivores, which they seem to still go well on. They probably go better on a more dedicated diet, and I do sometimes throw stuff in the right tanks for the right fish. But the main thing with the mixing is just the difference in aggressions and temperaments, and they just reading articles saying they just speak different languages. So an African cichlid when it's submissive looks different to an American cichlid when it's submissive. So they just end up shredding each other. And most people I find who say they get along fine, they've only kept them together for 6 to 12 months. They don't know what a 6-inch Mbuna can actually do to other fish when they get to that sort of 2-year mark, and how much territory they actually need. So, and then they go and advise it on Facebook. Oh, it's working fine for me. And you see all these 1-inch fish swimming around, and you're like, they're babies. You ain't seen nothing yet.
I like the analogy because obviously I deal with a lot of people talking about cichlids in the shop, and a lot of people sort of just lump cichlids as a whole in general. But I like the analogy that like African cichlids are kind of like your bantamweights, or just bang, 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 and then sort of fall away. Whereas your American cichlids are more your heavyweights, are going to go for 1 or 2 massive big hits and just destroy something. And I think that likens the difference between the two as far as aggression and compatibility quite well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. The Americans do seem to actually get in a fight and actually kill each other. The Africans tend to just wear each other down. The fish dies because it's got no fins, or it's just been chased to exhaustion, and it can't get any food or anything. So yeah.
So you've spawned a lot of fish. So let's have we talk about that. So off the top of your head, how many species of African cichlids do you think that you have spawned in your lifetime of keeping them?
I wouldn't even know. I currently keep about 50 species, I think.
Yeah.
But I've spawned obviously a lot more.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
Okay.
I wouldn't know. The hard part is obviously a lot of people think a peacock's a peacock, but I've got like 15 different. They are different species. They are different fish, but I couldn't actually answer that. I wouldn't even give a guess.
And so just as a rough guess, how many different species of Africans do you think are in New Zealand? If you reckon you're holding around 50, how many different species do you think are here?
It'd probably be 100 or so, I'm guessing, at a guess. Obviously, I'm only keeping the ones I like, which is important to me. I only keep things I like. And I'm also I tend to keep the stuff that is of better quality, and also the stuff that I think is going to die out. If there's stuff that's always in the pet shops and it's always been imported, even if it's crap quality, it's not going to die out. So I don't tend to bother with it. Hoping that the industry will keep them alive and in the country.
Yeah, makes sense. So what's the hardest, and use with fish, so you can any fish that you want, but what's the hardest fish that you've ever owned that you've had to breed? Or, sorry, I'll rephrase that. What's the hardest fish you've found to breed?
I've still got fish out there that I can't breed, that I haven't bred.
Got a male?
No. I've got males and females, and Kawanga Golds, and there's a few others out there that I just don't breed.
Just can't get them to go?
Nah, I mean, I don't tend to stuff with stuff, I just put them in a tank. If they're happy, they're eating, they're swimming around, they look good, I just leave them alone, I don't go in there and mess with them every day and start doing anything to try and mix it up. If after a while I get sick of it, I might move their tank or do something, or put them in a different tank, or try some different tank baits or something. But I tend to just believe in the patience, keep the fish happy and healthy, and leave them alone, keep the water good, and let them do their thing. When they're ready, they'll do it.
We're working on the theory that you're keeping water, not keeping fish.
Yeah, just a bit of patience as well. You can't just buy fish and expect next week it's going to breed. I like it, but
and it does happen. It happens quite regularly as well, but not all the time.
Yeah.
So what species of fish have you owned that's been the most satisfying that you've bred?
It always changes, obviously. But at the moment, I'm really enjoying the trophies, but they're just not breeding for me. So that's been interesting. I've got 5 different groups of trophies there, and they're all beautiful and all happy. And so that I'm about to start stuffing with them and seeing if I can create something. But
Yep.
stability is usually the key for Tropheus, and so you don't want to stuff with them because you can cause issues. But you know, my Du Bois colonies, 2 males and 21 females, and I stripped 3 fry in the last 2 months. You know,
Wow.
so there's something going on there.
Yeah,
They're
that's not quite right, is it?
perfectly happy, perfectly healthy. You know.
What colonies of Tropheus do you have at the moment, if you don't mind me asking?
Just Du Bois, Firefox, Pemba, Bishops, and I've got some got 3 Icola left, which is 2 males and a female. So hopefully they go again. But they've been terrible
Notoriously
fish.
hard to keep alive.
I think the hardest part with me is I've spent a lot of money on them, but I've only ever been able to find sort of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of them.
You're
So
right.
I think the key is next. I just won't bother next time. I mean, the last 4 I got for $100, so it was worth a punt.
Yep.
You know, but I think it's got to be the 20 or 30 at a time type thing.
Do you find it hard, while we're talking about trophies, do you find it hard to introduce new fish into a colony, or do you kind of have to put them all in at once, or like, because they are notoriously quite aggressive interspecies? How does that work for you? Do you have a process if you're introducing new fish into your colony, or what?
I just don't. If I had to, I'd have to move the tank or put in maybe half a dozen at a time.
Yeah.
If I'm adding juveniles, I add them at 2 to 3 centimeters, so they're not a threat, not seen as anything in the colony, and they just sort of hide in the rocks. But often with a Tropheus colony, a male will get kicked out. You'll see him up the top of the tank, and he'll get bashed, and you just can't even put him back in.
Yeah, right. That's
Which is why the big display tank over there is full of Tropheus. All the males that got kicked out of colonies or rescues, So they just ended up in there.
Again, you've spawned a lot of fish in your time. Breeding them, spawning them is one thing, but then raising the fry is another thing. I'm assuming that all African cichlids are different to raise. Do you have a surefire way that you've kind of worked out to raise a whole bunch? And what's your methodology for that?
Yeah, I guess I do have losses when I'm raising my fish because I don't run a production line. I don't try and keep as many as I can. This is a hobby for me, so I don't actually, the biggest thing I've found obviously is just keeping things stable and just regular feeding and that sort of stuff. The Tanganyikans are more sensitive and start off a lot smaller, a lot of the egg layers, so take a bit longer to get a bit of size on them. The biggest problem I have is just mixing fry. I've only got so many grow out tanks, so I might grab 2 different species, put them in the same tank, and one species will reign supreme, and the other one won't do so well. So, in a more dedicated environment, I'd have big tanks and species tanks to grow up for every grow out. But I've only got 50 tanks, so you're going to do what you can do.
Do you have any plans to increase the size of your fish room?
What's that?
Do you have any plans to increase the size of your fish room? Are you sticking with 50?
Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be about 6, just over 60 when it's finished.
Okay. Cool.
But for me, it's a hobby, so it needs to be easy. I've set it up to be easy. Like I can just turn the lights off, they go away for a week. It's an automatic water change system. Everything's running. I know the fish are going to be fine. If I get really busy with work or family or life, I can, I know the fish are going to be fine.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be a chore or something I don't enjoy.
Do you have an auto feeding system as well, or is that something you do yourself?
Yeah. I've been toying with the idea of it, but I think the humidity in the fish room, because of a few design faults that I've made, would just gum up an automatic water change system.
Well, there's so many tanks. If you take away the feeding and automate that, then what have you got left?
Feeding's when I check on the fish as well.
That's what I was going to say. That's your prime time for interacting with the fish and everything. And that's you go around each tank at a time, and that is your hobby. That's the core part of your hobby. And if you take that away, then there's nothing left really. So,
and with a lot of my fish, not eating is a massive sign of issues. So you do need to feed, and you do need to make sure they're actually eating.
Yeah.
The fish is hiding at the back and it's not holding and it's not eating. You've got issues. You know, you've got bloat or some sort of issue cropping up.
Yeah.
Just back to the raising the fry. Is there a particular fry that you've found ridiculously hard to raise, and then sort of worked out what it took to bring them up, or anything like that, or you did not kind of
For a
record
while
those?
there, I was killing all my a lot of my fry when they were growing up, and I couldn't figure it out. But I had a fault with my water change system, so it was actually pouring. It was only supposed to go for 15 minutes, but it went for 2 hours in the grow hat tanks. So it was just pouring cold chlorinated or cold tap water into the tanks for an hour, 2 hours. But generally, most Africans are pretty easy to raise. Like once they're eating, there's no real unicorns there. Once you've got fry, once you've got swimming fry, you're usually pretty safe.
No 10-day curse like there is with discus and all that kind of stuff. It's once they're hatched, once they're being spat out and eating, they're good to go.
As long as you're feeding them right and there's nothing else that's going to eat them, they're usually pretty good.
Yeah, cool.
Sorry, Cam, just before we move on, you mentioned spitting out there. Do you have a preference when you strip the females, or do you prefer to just let them hold and hatch themselves?
I always strip, but I strip it 2 to 3 weeks plus when they're actually fish.
Okay.
I don't like. Obviously, if I was going to strip and tumble, I'd get more fry. But I guess the mum's doing a good job, so
it's good to see that as well, isn't it?
I leave her to it, and I guess also I believe in if we keep stripping these things, you can remove parts of their nature over many generations if you keep doing it. So, and this is I do have some fish that I'm about to strip, like my Kawanga Golds, because they've been breeding and holding for 6 months and I haven't got any fry, so I'm going to try and tumble some. But I have a very poor success rate with it, and I don't like doing it. For some reason, the air supply in my fish room just fluctuates slightly, and when you try and set up a tumbler, you need a really constant air supply, otherwise they start tumbling wrong and they die. So, yes.
I prefer as well. I mean, watching fish carry the fry themselves right through the full process is nice to watch. For me, it's the most natural part of it. And when you start interfering with that to the point where you're taking eggs away, it becomes more of a science project than a fish keeping hobby.
Yeah, it's more harvesting, isn't it? It's harvesting. It's a commercial harvesting thing, not enjoying
it. Has its
it.
place. I mean, it does have its place, obviously, but like you said, keeping them until they're fry, you get to see that, and I like seeing that. There's nothing more rewarding than seeing fry with their parents.
So, for those of us out there that don't keep African cichlids, but actually don't know what stripping a female is, can you explain that to people so they kind of have an idea of what it is that you do when you go through that process?
Oh, you basically just take the holding the fish with she has babies in her mouth. You take her out of the water and you use some sort of implement to hold her mouth open and watch the fry out.
Yeah, cool.
It can be quite a delicate process, especially on smaller fish. Like your 3 to 4 centimeter Mbuna are really, really hard to hold on to and quite delicate. Often I just let them hold and spit in the tank and let the babies survive for a period of time until they get a bit of size on them. Because you just don't want to be killing them, trying to strip them. It's just not worth it. So,
I'm sure most people, when they first started with Africans and started stripping females, have gone oh my God, I killed my fish, or potentially even killed the female by being a bit rough on them. I know I've had a couple of pretty hairy experiences where I was a bit tight on an electric yellow, and she looked pretty rough for quite a few days afterwards. So
they're sort of funny, don't they?
Yeah, it's all learning. One thing when I was keeping Africans that I always wanted to see, which I never did, was a female spit her fry out and then gather them back in. Have you ever had that? Have you seen that? Because to me, that's one of the magic of how the African cichlids reproduce, with the females holding them, spitting them, letting them go, and then danger comes and bringing them back in. Is that something you've personally firsthand seen or anything like that? Because I know it's quite a rare feat.
Yeah, I've done it. I intentionally did it on with some dolphins, my blue dolphins, from Morio. Put her in a small tank just to see what she'd do.
Yeah, cool.
and see how long she'd look after them for and stuff, and swim around and
Yeah.
pick them up and stuff. So I let her do that for a month or two, and she actually looked after them, didn't eat them, so it's pretty cool.
Cool. So constantly spitting them out, feeding, bringing them back in, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah. After they got a reasonable size, she stopped taking them back in, obviously, after a couple of weeks. But for a while, a lot longer than I would have stripped her, she was spitting them out.
Yeah, true.
Eating and then taking them back.
Did she eventually see them as food, or were they never considered that, or did you lose a few from her, or how did that work? Or did you take them out first?
I removed her before they got too big. So
Okay.
I imagine eventually she would have.
Yeah.
If there were any losses, I didn't see any.
Yeah.
She would have eaten them afterwards. So
Yeah.
never know.
I witnessed that quite a lot when I was breeding Astle tilapia a long time ago.
Yep.
Yeah, ones with the they were just on fire. They were just breeding them, matrimoniously, but the females are fantastic at what you were just saying, Cam.
Yes. A lot of those ones do it too long, and they end up getting really skinny on a day. You could actually separate the males and let them condition up, because they're always holding, always got fry, always looking after them.
I know.
So,
I know.
and that's another reason why we do have to kind of stuff with nature a little bit. And when we put these fish in these little tiny tanks, it's sometimes a bit cruel to let them hold for 4 weeks,
Yeah.
because they don't, in a small tank, they don't ever get a break.
Yeah.
So I do believe in taking them, I do believe in stripping them a little bit earlier, just to make sure the female actually eats and recovers.
Cool. We've got a question from the floor. Cameron wants to know what's Tonto up to?
Yeah, we've got 2 dogs having a bit of a Royal Rumble here in the background, so I might show you them soon when we go out the fish room.
Yeah. If anyone has any questions while you're watching, please feel free to ask them. We'll bring them up, and we'll try and ask Ryan the sticky questions for him. So, what's the longest generations of fish that you currently have or have had? And I sort of mean, like, you caught some fry, you grew them up, you spawned from them, you've got the next fry, and that kind of. How long's that sort of had for?
I think I've got some electric yellows that I've had for probably on 10 years or something.
Right.
The hard part with me is I've had 2 disasters and lost entire fish rooms. So once in Hobsonville, when I lived in Hobsonville, a tornado went through.
Yep.
And I had about 60 tanks of fish there. And because it was a disaster zone, the tornado went through and stuffed everything. They just wouldn't let us in. We were only allowed to go in escorted by civil defence members with high-vis vests on to get personal belongings, and that was it.
Yeah.
And get cats and dogs out. And they cut all the power to the area because a lot of the houses were destroyed.
Yeah.
So I had to go back and do what I could, but unfortunately everything perished slowly and basically just cooked and had no oxygen and stuff. So that was pretty devastating. And then I had another one here where the heater stuck on and cooked them all. So now you lose generations, and you lose a lot of. That one actually, I just shut the fish room door and didn't do anything for a year when the last one happened there. Yep. And now I run backups on everything.
Makes sense.
Because you just don't want to lose it,
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of time and effort and dedication into it, let alone money. And also they're living animals, and they become part of you and part of your family, and part of your daily routine. So.
And we do have a responsibility
100%.
to them to provide them a good environment and the best
100%.
we can.
Yep.
And the tornado obviously wasn't my fault, but the heater was. So put steps in place to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, it's a fair call. Yeah. So you've obviously been keeping fish for quite a while now. What are some of the changes that you've noticed within the New Zealand hobby over the last sort of decade or two, whether they be positive or negative changes? What are some of the things that you have noticed?
Well, when I started off keeping fish, we had under gravel filters.
Mm-hmm.
That was it.
Yep.
And if you had a power filter, it was pretty fancy, man. Like you had something you plugged in, it was filtering water. You had fruit salad gravel on the bottom. 2 inches of it, and an under gravel filter, and that was it. So things were very basic, and you got all your information too from joining fish clubs and going around and talking to usually these old timers that had these tanks that were so murky you could barely even peer in, and the most amazing fish, you know.
Yeah.
So, and that was where I started, and now we're in a completely different time. It's really interesting. Sorry, that just came up.
Technology has changed the hobby quite dramatically over the last maybe 6 or 7 years. It's just been.
And I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing, you know. Like, aspects of it are, you know, like it's good to see people, you know, these big filters and stuff are brilliant. But I think a lot of people need to actually understand that you don't actually need an awful lot to have a really successful fish tank. You know, my entire fish room is built of air. You know.
Well, the one most single thing that's really changed the hobby and been a good thing is LED lighting. That's probably the one thing that has made a positive impact, and I wouldn't change that for the world. It's cheaper, better, more convenient.
Also adjustable, controllable.
Yeah, exactly. But everything else takes away that hands-on feeling for a lot of people. You know, people like us, we've came from when you had to know how to do it yourself. You know, had to know how to kind of improvise and things. But now, like a new fish keeper coming in now, everything's automated through their phones, and if something goes wrong, they don't know. It's a struggle for them to kind of, you know, fix it because everything's linked to Wi-Fi and stuff. So,
and I think with all these, it seems to be a general push in society that something's broken, you get a pill or you get a potion or something to fix it. You know, so and obviously the aquarium manufacturers are going to be like, we'll make potions and pills to fix anything. But on a very basic level, I don't think a lot of those things work. You know, and unfortunately, unfortunately, depends how you look at it. We get a lot of our information from Facebook and stuff these days, and you know, a lot of people say, "Oh, this worked for me," you know. So in their classification of this worked for me is they stuck some potion in their tank and their fish didn't die, so it worked.
Yeah.
So we end up with a lot of misinformation sort of being spread about a lot of stuff. And and I was speaking to a pleco breeder that I know the other day, and I've known him for probably 20 years, and he's like internationally acclaimed and lives in New Zealand. Most people don't even know he exists anymore, you know. And he said, I just see all the rubbish on Facebook and I don't even bother commenting and arguing with these guys, you know. So we do lose a lot of we gain a lot, but we lose a lot as well with it. So I get sad, I guess, when I see people posting stuff about their fish and, you know, all the chemicals they're throwing in there and how much it costs and all this sort of stuff. And I think a lot of people get out of the hobby because they think it's expensive and hard. And I don't think it has to be expensive or hard, you know. So
if it was expensive and hard, I wouldn't be in the hobby.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a cheap ass too, mate. You know, I do anything that's just as cheap as I can and as easy and simple as I can, because I don't want it to be complicated. If it's complicated, it's too hard. It's not enjoyable, you know.
I like to know how to fix something before I do it, so that if I don't have to go out and buy something new, I can fix it and keep it going.
I will just touch on the question we had about the angels. If they're disappearing overnight, my suspicion is probably the parents are sucking them back, because that's quite normal fish behaviour if it's big enough to fit in the mouth and go in the mouth. So you may want to probably remove the fry into a breeding net. Be careful, not all nets are the same. Some of the mesh nets, the fry can be sucked out of anyway. But you might want to put into a breeding net or a breeding cage or into a separate tank to grow them up if you're looking to grow the fry up.
Yeah, well, that's another example, like we talked about before, with stripping fish. Is year after years and years of inbreeding and taking fry away from angelfish, they've become not become great parents, you know.
Yeah.
So and so a lot of them do eat their fry. So sometimes you have to decide, figure out how far they can get them and then siphon them out, or even take the eggs and artificially raise them.
Yeah, that's another option. Or depends what you want to do. And if you want to have 400 angels, go for it. If you don't want, then just let them do their thing.
Exactly.
So we kind of touched on a little bit like the Facebook fish keepers versus the old old pros kind of thing. Do you think it's having a detrimental effect to the hobby in the long term, or a positive effect in the long term? Like you said, you're speaking to somebody who's got a wealth of knowledge, and I'm fairly certain I know who you're talking about. And there's absolute phenomenal wealth of knowledge. But if it's, I don't want to be here because it's just feels like people are going to throw spears or what have you, then how do you think that's kind of affecting the hobby in general?
Yeah, I guess as we evolve, it becomes people just. I hope it doesn't become a thing of you've got to buy this tank and you've got to buy 30 or 40 chemicals, you know, people think they need to do that to keep it running.
Yep.
It is good to have access to people, you know, like I post online regularly, you know, and other people do. I don't know if it's good or bad, you know. Yep. It is hard to say. Technology is good, but technology is bad at the same time. Yep. These people have got access to a lot of information. I guess the hardest part is figuring out who you can who actually knows what they're talking about and who has the experience to be able to give the answers. I mean, you know, I'm on a lot of African Cichlid pages and people put up photos for IDs, you know, and they're always just a disaster for random people posting stuff, you know. So I don't know what the answer is.
I guess that's where the good old-fashioned fish clubs hold their own, because they cut out all the noise and you just get people go to there because they want to go there. They're not just picking up their phone and scrolling when they're bored. They've got, you've got to make an effort to go to the club. So they're going to go there because they've got something to contribute to, because they want to learn, and that's what keeps the core of the hobby going. So I mean,
and I always Karen. I always say to people, go and find a local fish keeper, someone who's keeping lots of tanks. And just figure out what they do. You know, I've helped so many people. You know, when I had mates and stuff, they get these tanks and stuff, and they say, "Mate, this is costing so much money. This and that and the other thing." I said, "Well, just do this." What? Can't do that. Reddit says I can't do that. I asked on the internet the other day, and 10 people said they had this thing and this thing and this thing. You know, so come out and see my tanks. Come out and see my fish. If you think there's anything wrong with any of them, then don't do it. But otherwise, just keep it real simple. Keep it real easy. You know.
So when you go keep it simple, obviously you need an aquarium, obviously you need some water and fish. What else do you have in your keep it simple kind of mindset?
Just filtration and heating, you know.
Yep.
I don't use the chlorinators, but I would always recommend them because you just don't know what's in the water. You know, it is a risk that I run. That I probably shouldn't, but I do. And I've been doing it for 20 years and never had an issue.
Yeah.
You know, one day I might always sniff the water before I put it in there and make sure it doesn't stink like chlorine. My water change system out there only adds 2% 4 times a day. So I feel the risk's mitigated across the room. But it is a risk that I run, and it isn't something that I recommend people do, because obviously you're not in control of that water. Councillors, they do what they want to it. So
what my dad used to do, and he used to swear by it, he used to have the big drum, plastic drum, and he would fill that up with tap water and leave it overnight for a couple of days.
Bubbles in it,
Yeah, and then use that water without even treating it.
I think 20 years ago the water was possibly a higher quality than what we're getting out of the tap these days as well.
Yeah.
I've come from Wellington. I'm from the North Island, not the South Island, and moving to Nelson, the water here was very average compared to Wellington. So I noticed when I was younger there was a huge difference, and I just think that the water quality, although the council say it's of a quality level, I think the water quality has actually decreased to what it was many years ago. And there's all sorts of more tinkering they do now with it to make it safe for human consumption. As technologies come along, science has come along, we've learnt more. So I can understand how people that have been keeping fish for 30, 40 years, never used any of the stuff, never had to, never required it, didn't need it years ago because that stuff wasn't pumped into the water. Whereas now a lot more stuff is pumped into the water, if that's kind of making sense. And then there's the long-term effect of what it could potentially do. Till you've had your fish for 7 years, they die, might have been old. if you've been using, we used to chlorinated, so that's what we're talking about, every water change for the last 7 years, maybe you got 12, 13 years out of the fish before it got old age, if you know where I'm going with that.
Yeah, that's always an interesting one, isn't it? When it's something that, you know, I mean, as humans, we know that if you eat vegetables and exercise and stuff, you live longer. But it's hard to know for a fish what we need to do to, you know, when they die, are they dying because they've got stuffed kidneys because we've been feeding them the wrong food,
Totally.
or because they've been kept in the wrong pH or the wrong hardness? They've looked happy and healthy for them forever, you know. But and that's another thing.
5 years off them.
Yeah, another thing that it's hard to know because you can't go and talk to them, or you can't take them to a doctor, so you don't know.
Yep,
You know?
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. So we've talked about the food that you've fed and what you feed, and we've just had a very brief talk about, you know, feeding the wrong food. Then, what is it that you actually feed your fish? Do you have, you know, this day gets this and this day gets that? Do you have a routine, or what is it that you look for in your food to feed your African cichlids?
Yeah, so food's one of those hard ones, and I still don't think I even really know what I'm doing with it, and I've spent many years researching it. I don't know what the answer is. I know, but at the moment I'm feeding a spirulina flake that I get out of the States. I'm trying to convince Cam to get it, but he won't. John will know who he is. Ken's Fish. I get my flake from Ken's. And New Life Spectrum, which is just a staple that's been around for African cichlids for years. I've just gone into some omega-1 as well, so I'm using omega-1 veggie kelp pellets. I feed a lot of seaweed, nori, so I just go to the Asian supermarket, buy 100 sheets of that, cheap as, feed that. And once a week I soak the pellets in a bits of vitamins that I found online that seems to make sense to me. There's about 5 different vitamins I soak in there and feed them just in case there's something missing from their food. And I'm going to go into a bit of rapashi as well. So.
Have you tried the algae treats from Fish Science that cam cells? Have you tried them yet? That stick on the glass?
I haven't tried them yet. No. I tend to only look at foods that I can buy in bulk. I don't know if Fish Science has quite got bulk yet, because obviously feeding 60 tanks, you know.
Yeah, they used to do like bags for the fish rooms in the shops, but that wasn't available international. That was just a UK thing. That makes sense what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's just like it's got to be economical. I mean, even then, the last import I did from the States was $870. You know, so I spent probably $2 or $3 grand a year feeding fish.
Yeah,
quite easily.
So you reckon, I obviously saw the order that you did. You reckon that's what, 3 or 4 months worth of food for you?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'm already starting to run low on New Life Spectrum. You know.
Wow.
So
wow.
I go for a lot of food, and it's you know, as a hobby, it struggles to pay for itself, but it's a hobby, so it doesn't need to, you know. But
you need to get yourself a sponsor.
What's that?
You need to get yourself a sponsor for food.
Oh, you know, I've got some friends that help me out where they can, you know. So that's the main thing, that I help them out with fish, so it works.
Yeah.
So omega-1, New Life Spectrum, and there was another one that you said. What's the other one that you said?
Ken's, just said some Ken's flake, yeah.
Ken's. Do you find a difference in these food for bringing out different colours in your fish, or behaviour, activity, or do you kind of feel that like a cichlid formula is a cichlid formula across the range of most things, or you see any differences there?
It's hard to see a difference without doing a scientific experiment.
Yeah,
you know,
cool.
like I really struggle with that aspect of it. I've always wanted to set up 4 tanks and put 4 identical lots of fry in them, and have 4 filters the same, and go through and weigh out the food and feed the same amount to the same tanks, and actually see if any difference happens in growth and coloration as adults and all that sort of stuff. But I haven't done it. Yeah. So my answer to that is to just feed a variety, you know, and hope that I'm hitting, by feeding a variety of quality foods, I'm hitting nutritional requirements of the fish. That's why I add the vitamins once a week, just to make sure if something's missed. I also bake a bit of frozen food, but I've kind of got off that recently because I've been lazy, you know. So it takes time, and you've got a 10-litre bucket of water 10-litre bucket of goop boiling on the oven and trying to bag it all up and stuff. It's pretty.
And keep the missus happy from the smell.
The garlic and stuff, it stinks out the house, and yeah, it's a bit of a mission.
I think you make a good point about variation in food, because like we'll use Omega and as for example, this company's using these products, this company's using these products. There's different micros and macronutrients in both of them, and they might be a bit lower on this, but they're higher on that, and it kind of just balances it all the way through where you need it to go, which I think is quite a valid thought pattern again with the vitamins going in as well. And what
the vitamins I add, I add a lot of reef supplements and stuff like that. They have different amino acids and things like that in it, based on a research article that I read that recommends it all. I mean, it may or may not help, but it makes me feel like it's going to do something. I don't know, I
do the same thing when I mix up rapashi. I'm putting a few different supplements in here and there for exactly the same reason. Fish we get obviously in the stressful stage of all the travel and that kind of thing. So thinking in the mindset that giving them the more vitamins, more minerals, all the aminos is just going to help them through this period, and it's exactly the same sort of thing. And like I said, we eat fruit and vegetables on should be a daily basis. Go a week or so without fruit and vegetables, and you know the difference. So
and the fish also. I mean, we've had them in aquariums for 100 years or whatever, but they can't de-evolve in that time. So and they're used to eating fresh stuff, and a lot of the freshness of the ingredients gets baked out in food. So I do think we need to be. Well, my theory. I mean, again, like I say, I'm not the expert on this field. The African cichlid keepers will argue about food all day, every day until the sun goes down. But my thing is just add as much as I can. I'd like to say try and put fresh stuff in there as well.
I mean, even with the Mbuna, when you're picking off the algae off rocks and whatnot, there's going to be microorganisms that they're ingesting at the same time as well. So you're obviously wanting to keep a very green-based, algae-based diet, but they're still going to be getting in microorganisms and crustaceans and stuff like that in their diet naturally. So you've got to be taking that into account as well.
And like I say, I cheat and I feed everything the same food. And I've got mixed tanks of carnivores and vegetarians as well. So I do go heavily veggie-based.
Makes sense.
Compromise.
Yeah.
So we discussed earlier that you might give us a wee walk through or wee tour through your fish room. Do we want to give that a wee go?
Yeah, we'll give it a go. We'll see how it goes. We tried before and it got a bit glitchy, but we'll work for a longer. And if anyone's got any questions, just pop them up and I'll try and answer. I will be on my phone, so it'll be a bit.
So I'll
rough,
push this up. See if your phone's up now.
Okay.
And I'll remove you once you're ready. Once you start moving your phone. Here we go. We're rocking. You hear us? You good?
Yep, I can hear you. I can see you.
Cool.
We're all good.
Look at that seamless transition. Sorry.
Hello.
Yeah.
There's one of the guilty parties there. There's another one somewhere.
So just had a valid point about the wild caught samurai gouramis and fluval bug bites and tropical flakes have been a lifesaver as they keep spitting out the other brands, but they love the bug bites here. I can see that. I think there's potentially the same samurai gourami that I had massive issues with them. I wasn't feeding the bug bites. I was trying to live foods and some other things, but they all went upside down for me pretty quickly. But again, I think higher quality food is key when keeping aquarium fish. Looking after the water and you're looking after the nutrition, those are things that we can control and things that we need to control, I think, better than what we can often do.
And also, when we buy fish, sometimes like overseas or wherever, this fish is only eaten like flake food for its entire life. So if you stick a pellet in front of it, it doesn't know it's food, right? Like it's going to look at it and go, "What is this? Is this a rock?" Like it doesn't know it's food. So sometimes you've got to try a few different foods until you find out something the fish likes, and then slowly try and introduce what you want it to eat.
Glenn's
so the fish rooms
we'll come back to you, Glenn. After you run.
Yeah, so that's the fish room there.
All right, cool.
So I don't know how it's going to connect in here, but we'll see.
How we go.
Might even fog up. So obviously it's a 20-foot shipping container. It's a freezer container. So again, this is all about simplicity and ease and cost. So this is already fully insulated. So it's designed to keep frozen goods in it. It'll keep heat in it. You know, so I managed to heat all these tanks with this little fan heater down here. You know, so that's it. That's all that heats all these tanks. So
Wow.
Again, it's keeping it cheap. It's keeping it simple.
Yep.
Normal fish room stuff. There's a big air pump down there.
Yep.
Runs up to a plenum, goes around the top. Bit of spaghetti, but you just punch in wherever you want air. Put an inline valve in and go and control it.
Nice one.
Again, it's got to be really simple.
Yep.
The water change system runs off a garden irrigation system through 4 different banks.
That's all auto water change, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's on a timer. At the moment, this bank here is going. This guy is pretty happy at the moment. Bank number 2 is going at the moment. You see 215. So yeah, it just runs through on a timer.
Neat.
And what I do is I work out 10% of the volume of the tank and just chuck a dripper in each tank. So it does 10% a day, and I do it in 4 15-minute intervals daily,
nice
just spread through the day.
Yeah.
And that's just so they get 2.5% every time.
Yep.
Again, that's because I'm just using pure tap water. So I don't want to pour 50% water change in once a day and just it'll be cold. It could have chlorine or anything in it, so we've got to be real gentle with it. You know, I'm going to put an inline chlorine filter in at some stage, just as insurance.
Yep.
And obviously, every tank to do the water change system has to be plumbed. You know, so they're drilled with overflow system. So every tank's drilled with overflows.
Oh, nice.
Going out to a drain.
How do you?
So there's a little bit.
How do you stop fry getting out when they're a little bit smaller through the drains? Do you have something blocking the drains off, or are the grates quite small already?
No, I find that African cichlid fry hang around the bottom more than they hang around the top. So they tend to. I don't tend to have huge losses. What I did find I had losses with were little ocellatus. The fish themselves tend to try and hide in the overflow. They think it's a shell. So that was a problem, and also bristlenose fry seem to like them as caves and end up going down the overflow. So I just stuff a bit of foam in there if I need to.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
You know.
Do you think that bore water will be better than town water generally, or this is just a question from one of the viewers?
I don't know. What I'd do if I had any water I wasn't sure of is I'd take it into a pool shop and tell them it's out of your swimming pool and get them to test it, and then you'll know what's in it.
I think all bores are obviously different, just like any town supply is different as well. So some bore might be really suitable for African cichlids on the hardness. Others might be not like that. Might be better for American tetras, for example. So yeah, that's.
Can I ask a silly question? What's bore
Yes.
water?
Like
dig a big hole, put a pump in the bottom of it, and there's water in it.
Well,
okay.
Yeah.
I'd be more concerned about nitrates in a bore, to be honest. That'd be my concern. Just nitrates getting into it. But
From field.
And just quickly back to Glenn before we'll get you to show us around all your fish. Glenn wants to know, does anyone stock frozen baby brine? I have a feeling that Cameron from the aquarium project might have frozen baby brine in the Ocean Nutrition Tropical Quintet. I think it is. Don't hold me on that, but give him a message or give him a ring and see if he does. I've just got a feeling that might be in that Tropical Quintet pack. So give him a go and see how you go with that. All right, mate. So what have you got to show us? Show us the good stuff that we've all been waiting
I don't
for.
know. I'm just cruising around, just putting the camera at tanks, you know.
Cool.
Unfortunately, these are all breeding tanks, not show tanks. So you get what you're given, you know.
So what's your favourite fish in your room at the moment then?
Now, if you see the lulupi fry swimming around the bottom there.
Man, they're cool.
Too small.
They're up there for me.
It always depends on the one I'm struggling with the most, I guess. At the moment, I really want to breed these guys, the Kawanga Golds.
Beautiful.
Because I believe, can't be too certain, but I believe these are probably the last ones in the country.
Wow.
There's a male and 5 females in there, and they're always holding, and they always spit. So I'm hoping the male's not infertile.
Yeah. So they're the ones that you're talking about stripping soon because you've got them holding but got nothing from them. Is that right?
Yeah. I think it's unlikely though that I'm going to have any luck with that. Yeah. Because the odds of 5 females all being bad mothers is pretty slim. I think the male may be infertile. Okay. Unfortunately.
It's a beautiful fish.
Which will be just a time thing, I guess. We'll just have to hope that he matures or something changes. Yeah. Maybe that's one tank I need to start messing around with the pH or something and seeing if I can get something to change there. I don't know.
It's not hardening fast enough or hardening too fast or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's not something that I usually stuff around with. So, unfortunately, the lighting in here is not set up for fish viewing or anything. So it's just what it is.
Yeah. You've got some stunners in there. Oh, look at that.
Wow.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff in here. And they all just swim off when they see the camera. So you'll notice that all of my tanks are pretty manky as well. Like they've just got crap in them and, and that sort of stuff because I don't care about any of that. The water's still perfect. Yeah. A bit of fish poo never really hurt anyone.
So you've got a few little partition tanks here. Are they timeouts or are they grow out spawnings or what's going on with them? Oh wow!
So they're just temporary holding tanks, really. At the moment, I'm just cycling fish through them, just to see what. Either let them, like there's a males colouring up, that sort of stuff. There's a couple of pair of shellies in here in this one. That are going to breed. They're too small to keep fish in long term. So if I'm, if I see a promising male out of a group, I might chuck him in there for a bit, see if he colours up, see if he's worth breeding from. Or if I have some males that are for sale, I might chuck them in there and then sell them from there, Just depends. But it's handy to have lots and lots of little tanks, especially, like this poor guy here got a bit of a hiding, so I don't think he's going to make it. But it's nice to have tanks to put them in to recover and
Earlier in the interview, you said you look towards equality now, and you've just said basically then a couple of males that are colouring up. Is there anything in particular you look for when you're looking for breeding stock from the fish that you've got? Is it generally the first dominant male is the one you go with, or have you found that later on in the line, the next couple of males coming through are better, or is there anything you look for, or what have you?
It's just growing out a bunch, like I say, separating them out like that, and just seeing which ones colour up. Because obviously, if you just choose the most dominant one, you're only ever going to see that one.
Yeah.
And no other fish is going to colour up, so you might end up with better ones. My red peacocks, the male who's hiding, I had to go through about 4 or 5 males until I found the best one, the one that I was happy with. Because I'm really trying to work on getting some decent reds.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't see him. That's fine.
You got some beautiful fish in there. Some stunning fish in there.
There's all sorts of cool stuff in here. Unfortunately, they're not all coming out and posing, but they're around.
Was that a few eye biters there? Was it?
Yeah, they're Strigatus, those ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of those ones that we're not quite sure exactly what strain they are.
Yeah.
But they came to us as regardless.
Do you have any bumblebees in there by any chance? I quite like bumblebees, and I'd like to see some.
No, I don't like bumblebees. They're not my favourite. These little guys are really cool. They colour it. They're only about 2-3 centimetres, and they're coloured up pretty cool. Little Victorians.
Was that some cuckoos that I saw?
What's that? Yeah, there's cuckoos. Yeah. Yeah.
How many cynodontis species do you have in there? Just them?
I've got them. I've got Petricola.
Yeah.
With a nice fat female there.
So cool.
And I've got some Lucipinus too. I think they're called.
Nice. Yep.
But they're only little fellas.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, they're all hiding at the moment. You won't see them. But a friend of mine bred a bunch of them. There's a little one there. See.
Oh yeah.
He gave me a bunch, so I'm just growing them out.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of African rift cynodontis to go into African tanks. I think they're that's stunning. I think
he's a really cool fish.
Well and truly worthwhile having a wee group of them at the bottom of any African tank. The cynos. Yeah,
I agree. I've been working on trying to breed the cuckoos.
Yeah, yep.
So far they've eluded me. So.
Yep. So are you saying I've spawned something that you haven't spawned because I've managed to spawn them?
Have you?
Yeah.
Good work. What did you use as a host?
I think I had electric yellows and Demisoni, believe it or not, once as well.
So they're out there.
Yeah.
I put them in with my Taiwan reefs and a whole bunch of female dragon's bloods, just hoping someone will do something.
Yeah.
But every fry I take is all Taiwan reefs.
Yeah.
So again, just another one of those ones that we need to work on.
Yeah.
See if we can
Black Calvus?
Yeah, just Calvus.
Yeah. Neat.
Again, one I used to breed a lot of, and I lost them all in the Hobsonville tornado, so I haven't really.
I got my first group of Calvus came from you. First night I had them, remember you saying very clearly, they're small, they will jump out of any possible gap you've got. And the first night I lost 2 overnight that jumped out of a tank, and the gap was no bigger than sort of, I don't know, 3/4 of a centimetre, and they just straight out overnight. And I was like, yeah. Very clearly remember.
Yep, they do that. They're really, really hard to raise too. I had, for some reason, I've spawned them a couple of times recently, but I haven't. I've lost my female now. I've only got males, I think, left. But I just can't seem to raise the fry now, and I used to be able to raise hundreds of them.
Yeah,
Last time I bred them, I actually rigged up a little bottle on the top with a dripper system on it, so they had a constant water change system and just drip water in.
Nice.
Dripped aged conditioned water. I had another aquarium there with aged water in it to try and, because they're really sensitive.
Yeah,
so
nice. What's the smallest African species that we can get here? I'm assuming it'll be a shelly of some description.
Probably be between these guys, your brevis, and the Aulonocara.
Yeah. What's their full grown size?
So Aussies will get to about maybe 6 centimeters.
Yeah.
These guys here are really, really suitable for small tanks because they don't get that aggressive, and they pair off real strong. Like the pair will just stay together and they won't fight each other. So you can put them in like a little small division like this, and they'll be happy just living there. The Aussies are a little bit harder because they seem to just breed, and then the male will go seppo on the female.
Yep.
So they don't seem to be as compatible. They don't hang out as much as a pair.
Yep.
So yeah, you can do those. You probably do brevis in a little 25-litre tank on your desk. The problem is obviously if you get a pair, you're going to end up with hundreds of them. There's some brevis fry in this one, I think.
They are neat little fish.
Oh, they're cool fish. They've got great personality. They're cool to watch, and they hang out together. So yeah.
Cool. Oh. Got anything else cool in there you want to show off?
No, everything's gone and hidden because I'm walking around with a camera. It's all like, what are you doing?
And you got some really nice fish in there.
Yeah, there's all sorts tucked away in here.
Yeah. Have you got any plants growing in your tanks at all, or you?
Yeah. Well, as you know, I'm a bit of a planted tank guru. I quite like planted tanks, so this is it.
Going well. Going well.
Yeah, this is the Nubis is actually growing really well. No, I hate planted tanks. A mate of mine gave me all these, and I chucked them all in there, and they just grow. So, yeah. These fish actually, I've noticed the ones in the tank with the plants are growing a lot faster than the ones without.
Yeah.
The fry. So, just noticed they seem to just always be a lot fuller. So I think they're being vegetarians are probably picking up the plants.
Picking off algae off it as well. I mean, that's the joy of the hobby. Like, you might not like plants, someone might love it, someone might hate African cichlids, you love it, but we're all keeping fish, we're all keeping aquariums, and every single person has the ability to do it and enjoy it in their own possible way, and that's got to be one of the coolest things about the hobby. Yeah,
there's literally a million different ways to enjoy it, And I was having this discussion with someone the other day, and it's always really interesting to try and determine what is right and what is wrong too. Like what I think is right and wrong or good and bad depends on my experience. And I've got a bit more experience than most, but it doesn't mean that what they're saying is right or wrong. Yeah, so that's what I quite like about it. It's interesting discussion, and it's hard to prove anything. So
yeah, it's very true.
We'll do what we can. I don't know if you'll see Mr. Lawanda at the back there, but he's one of my favourites.
I'm trying to sit closer to my screen to see it all, but I don't think it's helping.
Nah. Problem is they're right in front of the lights, so I'll put some food in, but I don't know. You've probably gone all crazy. Yeah, these ones are the ones that I'm hoping to get going. No, he's not coming out. He's not going to play the game. That's all right. Yeah, cool.
Cool. All right, so I've just got a few very quick questions left. I've got all of our main questions done, and unless there's other questions that people want to know, there's a bit of a conversation going in the chat about some other various fish, which is really cool. But if there's any other questions that people have for Ryan, please fire them away. If not, we'll begin our School of Six. Dun, dun, dun. All right, you ready? 6 very quick questions that I want to ask you. Tea or coffee?
Neither.
What? Don't be like that.
I don't drink hot drinks.
That's not an option.
If I had to choose, I'd choose tea. There you go, tea. Go.
All right. Is it true that next year is the year of the warrior?
No.
Come on, mate.
You're on a losing battle right there.
Do you think we're alone in the universe?
No.
No, cool. If you could explore one rift lake, which one would it be? By that I mean the whole lot. You're there diving, the whole experience. Which one would you go for?
Malawi.
Malawi? Why is that? Just as an extra note.
Just I guess they're all diverse, but I've got most Malawi fish, so I'd like to see some of them in the wild.
Yeah, that's fair. If animals could speak, which one would be the dirtiest?
Definitely a dog.
A dog. All right, cool. And for you, what is your unicorn fish?
Probably say Trophy cichlids at the moment.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
We've discussed your abilities to keep a cola going multiple times. So I understand that. Totally understand that.
Yeah. Well, you were going to buy some at one stage, weren't you? And I said,
you talked me out of them.
Yeah.
They are also one that I always have wanted to do, and you've definitely talked me out of them at least once. So maybe one day we'll see.
I'll get there with them one day. Yeah.
Cool. That's all the questions I've got. So thank you very much for your time. Unless there's anything else that you want to show us or talk to us about, and we're pretty much done. So thank you.
No, I think I'm done. It's good to finally be on here. Thanks.
Cool.
Yeah.
John, have you got anything? Are you happy as well?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for letting us see your fish room.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Inspiring.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope you enjoy your long weekend. Don't forget the fish room's having a 10% sale on everything on our website, so jump on there and grab some fish that you require. Unfortunately, we don't have any African cichlids. I'm sorry, Ryan. But yeah,
Cam can always source African cichlids from me though if people are interested. So
yeah,
it's not
there
hard.
is that as well. Yeah.
You know.
On that note, do you have a way for people to contact you? Do you have a Facebook page, a website, or anything like that people can contact you on if they're looking for some Africans and they're in Auckland?
Yeah, I do. My Facebook page is African Cichlid Direct NZ. So
Cool.
African Cichlids Direct NZ.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time. Again, really appreciate it. And it's fantastic you could finally join us after about a year worth of pestering you. So I only took a Friday public holiday.
Yep, you can thank Matariki for that one, hey?
And I thank it really well. All right, thank you very much. All right,
But
have a good
cheers,
one.
guys. See ya. Bye.
Catch you later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.